Hey everybody, it's Mahadeva, the OG Thunder Wizard. All right, so let's get back to some real work, which is operating from your authentic self. It's really important, in my teaching anyway, it's really important to understand what that means. Operating from the authentic self is the entire goal of your incarnated existence. You incarnated to have that experience of your authentic self. So I want to help you with that. And before we go any further, if you're into what I do here, subscribe, hit the bell button. Go check out the 90-day challenge at thunderwizard.com. Click around until you get to Warrior 90-day challenge, because that is exactly what this is about. So I want to share with you some important scientific information that scientists have recently discovered about the heart and the brain. And the heart carries within it cells, physically has the ability to have its own brain, its own knowledge, its own awareness. And the brain, of course, has the intellect and has other kinds of memory as well, but the heart has memory too. Now, if we're operating from our highest connection and vibration and balance within ourselves, we will have access to both of the brains, the brain in the heart and the brain in the head. But what ends up happening through life, and again, this is part of the challenge that your soul has created when it came here. Your soul has created a challenge based on your karma, your past life, your soul's desire to learn certain things. And so you will be experiencing a different, again, depending on your karma, you will have experiences that can be traumatic. And the idea is to learn from that trauma, to grow beyond it, so that your soul can become even more powerful. And so this is why living from your authentic self is absolutely crucial if what you want is to evolve, achieve enlightenment, whatever it is, words you want to put to that. And what I've been sharing with you is that there is a sacred spiritual technology which was practiced by esoteric shamans in China. And these shamans were associated with what is now thought of as black magic. And there are people who use the name of this sect who are in fact lower level black magicians, but the original practitioners of this were seeking to achieve what they would consider to be the phrase that they used was perfected immortal. And they didn't want to escape reincarnation in the Hindu way exactly. What they wanted to do is they wanted to get to their truest essence to such a degree that there was no need for them to reincarnate. They wanted to hold on to their awareness, and this was what was called being a perfected immortal. So the idea was that when your frequency got to a certain level, then you would phase out of material existence and you would hold on to your awareness, and then you would continue doing your work in a higher plane. You would continue to do your meditations and your work on a higher level, because there is no end to this. There's no end point. The best that we can comprehend is that people merge with, with infinity. The bodhisattvas, or in my ethnic tradition, the elves, who stand at the doorway to what we perceive to be infinity, and they turn around and they help us before they merge. Now, we don't know what happens. We can't comprehend that in our physical brains. I don't think it's an ending. I think it just goes beyond the ability for us to comprehend, and so we say they've merged with the infinite. So the idea is to first and foremost get balance within the body, and this is what the Daoist wizards did when they dealt with the 5 elements, and I teach that again here. Teach you advanced practices that you probably won't find anywhere else, where you get to balance the 5 deities within your body. So actually, if we put it all together, you have at least 7 deities that you are comprised of. You have 5 elements which are associated with the 5 organs of the body: the heart, the liver, the kidneys, the heart, liver, kidneys, lungs, and the stomach. And by balancing those, you are then, once you've got those balanced, you then are able to take those 5 energies to the next level. So on the basest of levels, your organs are there to make sure that your body functions, to get rid of bodily waste, to pump the blood, get oxygen in. But that's just the base function of them. They also have their own consciousness and awareness. So if you want the added benefit of those deities within you, then it's up to you to live a life where you allow them to function with the least amount of stress. That's why it's so important, if you want to make any headway, that you don't put any chemicals into your body that don't help you. And this includes alcohol, tobacco, hallucinogens. Hallucinogens forcibly make the organs, and especially the higher centers of the brain, they force them to release energy. You end up getting an experience, you have a vision, and even if we assume that your vision is, you really truly is seeing something and achieving something, you end up paying a huge price in the physical body. So while it's like trying to buy something on credit. You're going to have to pay interest on that. So the idea is not to have to pay interest. So we treat our bodies like temples that they are, and then once we've done that, then we move to the next level and we work with energy. And with energy, we are able to bring the 5 elements and the organs to a higher level where they become capacitors. They become able to channel and transmit and to refine life force energy to an even higher degree. And this is when you start working towards being superhuman. This is what all of these movies are about, superheroes. This is an unconscious awareness of people that human beings are in the position to evolve to become more than just human beings. You can become demigods while you still walk around in your body. So we have to talk about the heart center. And what I've come to find out is that there are 2 pathways in the Chinese tradition, at least. There are 2 pathways to achieve this perfected immortal status. And one is to go the masculine route, which, as we've talked about before, is Jing to Qi to Shen. Shen is the soul. So the soul lives here. This is where your soul is. Now, your identity is associated with that. You've got all these other deities living with you and doing their work, but they've got their own stuff that they're going to do. Once they're done with your physical body, they're going to move on and do whatever it is that they do. That includes your higher self, your lower self. But you are in here, and you are an infinite soul. And all of these other energies and entities within you are here to help the soul accomplish its work. That's why, this is why the 5 organs will allow somebody to drink themselves to death or, worry themselves to death. You end up getting, liver cancer or whatever it is. That's, that organ has said, hey, I'm here to help you, and I'm a workhorse, and you just work me to death. But if you actually get a relationship with these aspects within yourself, which are also emotional energies, if we create a relationship with them where it's cooperative, then we allow them to be healthy, then they will then help us, empower us. And the way we experience that is through our emotional life. So emotions are absolutely essential. The problem is we can get trapped in them. We can get trapped in the emotions. And so there's this challenge where people do one of two things. I'm giving you three basic options here. But there are two things that most people do, which is they either react to their emotions drive them, so they can't resist any emotional impulse, or directly connected to that is if the emotions are intolerable, then they deny them, they stuff them down. The middle path, which is really what Buddhism is all about. A lot of people think Buddhism is about being empty and neutral, but that's just the beginning. That's teaching you then to go to the next level, which is having all of your thoughts, feelings, impulses, desires without judgment. And you're not forced to act on them, and you don't then either try to stuff them down. Now, what ends up happening when you are not living from your authentic self, which is your soul, which, listen, none of us, if you're still in the body, there isn't anybody who's accomplished that 100% 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't care who you hear, any teacher, any guru who presents themselves as having achieved enlightenment is either deluded or they're conning you, or both. So whenever somebody either says that they've achieved enlightenment or they allow their followers to say that they've achieved enlightenment, run from those teachers. And you can't learn, even if that were true, you wouldn't learn anything from them anyway. So, I mean, let's just assume, for example, that Guru so-and-so has achieved enlightenment and he has 1 billion followers and they touch his feet. It's a waste of time to follow him because he's not human anymore. He can't sit there and tell you as a human how you struggle and deal with all of these things and how to follow that path towards achieving your authentic self. They can't help you with that because they no longer have that issue. It's not a problem for them. So don't waste your time. Buddhists have a great saying, which is if you see Buddha on the side of the road, kill him. Because what that means is that if you did see Buddha on the side of the road, you would stop what you were doing and you would worship him, and then you wouldn't grow. You grow by working on yourself. So the best person to help you with that is somebody who's doing the same thing you are, and maybe they're just a little further ahead on the path. And you say, yeah, what's going to come up is you got to turn left at the tree. So watch out because there's a snake underneath you got to be with somebody who just went through what you're going through. Otherwise, they're so far ahead, you can't get anything from them. But that's assuming that your teacher is enlightened, But again, I said there are no such thing. There is no such thing. I want you to get rid of the idea that there's an enlightenment phase that you hit and it's the end of the road and you're all done. It doesn't exist. That's why even the bodhisattvas go into union. They go into infinity because there isn't an end to it. Because if there was, they'd stop and they'd just sit there. There's no end. So the reason why I love the idea of shamanism and the reason why I identify as a shaman is because shamanism is about a continuous, ever-changing, dynamic balance. It's not static, it is dynamic. So you have the 5 elements, which are the 5 organs, which are the 5 basic emotions. And I talk about that here, and I give you exercises to work through that. Now, I'm getting a lot of response from people who are doing that, and it's even beyond what I expected. I knew it was going to be transformative, but people are actually emailing me and saying, this is very intense, and And I'm encouraging people to stick with it. So if you're going through that, stick with it. Remember, the goal is to live in a state of dynamic enlightenment, which is having all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, all of your impulses, all of your desires, having all of them positive and negative, pleasant and unpleasant, without judgment. And then learning how to take conscious action towards what is helpful for you, helpful for others. This is the problem with the world. I don't care what the attack on the U.S. Capitol, the starvation in whatever part of the third world country, warfare here and there, sex trafficking, slavery, global warming. I don't care what the problem is. It all stems from this one thing. It's a result of people not being in their authentic self. They're in what I call the conditioned self. It's unavoidable. This is the whole point. The whole point is to work through the conditioned self to become the authentic self. And the tragedy is when people get sidetracked and get trapped in the conditioned self. And so this has everything to do with the heart center. The heart center is just that. It's the center. And if you are able to operate from your authentic self, I'm telling you, that's when the magic happens. That's when everything starts to go your way. That's when you float through life seemingly without any issues or any troubles, where you have love, you have health, you have prosperity, you have awareness, you have deeper sense of fulfillment, and you have all kinds of feelings. And so there can be an ironic situation where you can be filled with all kinds of intense, maybe even uncomfortable feelings, but your objective reality is you're in the eye of the storm. And everything seems to be working to your benefit. And I've shared with you about my life and how my life does that. Now, I'm not free from crazy, intense, even uncomfortable feelings or emotions, but the goal is to know the difference. When you're trapped in the conditioned self, then what becomes more important to you is your narcissistic emotional experience. And again, this can be misleading and confusing because I'm telling you to live your life fully, completely in all of your emotions at all times. But that's not the same as being wrapped up in your narcissistic experience of your feelings. This is why there's half the people in the United States can't decide on whether or not Donald Trump won or didn't win the election. It's because you've got people who can't go beyond their emotional awareness. It's the same when you're arguing with your parents, you're arguing with your kids, you're arguing with your spouse. That's when you've got people who are wrapped up in their narcissistic emotional experience, and they can't make the distinction between their emotional reality at the moment and objective reality. And so that is the curse of being in the conditioned self, the inability to have all of your identity and experiences, and at the same time being able to understand, see, and decipher objective reality. Now, the goal of enlightenment is to be free of all of the conditioned self distractions, which people associate with lower level stuff like, being, unspiritual. Those are just judgmental ways of saying somebody who's trapped in their conditioned self. But the idea is to release your attachment to those things, which are, and that's the thing. What is a false attachment? I don't even like the word false attachment. False, I don't like the word false. But what's the difference between an attachment to your conditioned self and being fully committed to your authentic experience. Again, that's part of the journey that we take. And it can be very confusing. But that's really what happens. People get confused between the two, and then they become blind. They become blinded. They literally, like people say, I don't know who to believe. I don't know what to believe. This is an illness of being trapped in the conditioned self. So the heart center is where the soul resides. The soul resides in the heart center, and this is called the Shen in Chinese. In the Daoist tradition, it's called the Shen. Now, the Shen is protected and surrounded by an entity. So you have this entity within you that is surrounding your heart, that is there to protect the heart. And this entity is called the heart mind, the Xing. So the heart mind is called the Xing. So there's a difference between soul heart, which is the Shen, and the heart mind, which is the Xing. The Shen is masculine. So the soul is a masculine energy. The Xing is feminine. It surrounds and protects. This is why, just we're talking about, typical, heterosexual family life, which I'm not saying you have to live in, but you have the mother, and what does the mother do? The mother takes care of the kids, and the mother is looking to gather people together. And when you go and you skin your knee, you go to mom, and mom gives you a hug. Mom surrounds and protects you. Dad guides you. Dad is the guide who guides you towards your destiny, towards your highest life. He goes out and does the work and brings back the bacon. Mom surrounds and protects. The father will say, no, he's got to grow up. And mom says, no, I'm not going to let him do that. Her desire is to protect him. His desire is to get him out there and skin his knees and learn and grow, right? The masculine and the feminine. Just in the act of physical lovemaking, what ends up happening? The woman surrounds the man, which gets him to focus. So this is what's happening. You've got the soul that is your masculine identity, whether you're male or female doesn't mean masculine in a sexual way, a gender way. It's energetic vibration. And then the feminine is the heart mind. The heart mind has roles also, as you know, in nature. Who is it that protects the cubs against unbelievable odds? It's the mother bear. You don't want to go up against a mother bear. And even a small animal, if it's the mother, it will fight against an animal, 4 times its size and chase it off. Mothers have this ability, it's been documented, their child is under a car, they will lift up the car. This is the power of the feminine. True power is within the feminine. So the nature of the feminine is to surround and protect, which means that when you when you experience trauma, emotional, psychological trauma, the heart mind takes that. When you get rejected, when you get dumped, when you're betrayed, whenever your feelings are deeply hurt, it is the heart mind that takes the brunt of that hit for you. And it protects you, so it will store that memory. Your job is to, through meditation and through self-awareness, coax the heart mind to release the trauma so that you can work through it. Because otherwise you get trapped in anger, defensiveness, insecurity, mistrust, all of the things that I say. I mean, the first thing you have to do to make any kind of headway in spiritual work is to drop all victim mentality and to trust the universe. This is why, again, I mean, lately my thing has been with the QAnon folks. QAnon is a victim mentality, period. End of discussion. And, needing to protect yourself from the hidden cabal of the deep state, regardless of the truths or untruths of that mindset is going to keep you trapped, because you will not have access to your authentic self as long as you are trapped in a victim mentality. Chinese traditional medicine workers, if they know what they're doing, they take your pulse, and they listen to your pulse. I have no idea how that's done. To me, that sounds, how can you tell the difference? Either fast or slow or strong. How can you figure that out? But however they know how to do that, they'll take your pulse. And if you've been, if you've been betrayed by a lover, if you've been dumped, if you've been in a divorce, they'll know that. Really good one will take your pulse and say, you went through a divorce. How did you know that? It's in your pulse. Your heart mind, your Xing, holds that, and it's a memory. And it shields your memory up here. This doesn't always remember. There's an emotional memory, and then there's a cognitive memory. And so we need to work through those. Now, the power of the heart mind is where all true esoteric power comes from. There's power and then there's strength. They're two different things. Power comes from the masculine, strength comes from the masculine, power comes from the feminine. So if you want power, you must work through all of the issues that are lodged in the heart. And when you do that, then this power that is faced inward. So imagine it's like, a nuclear device, right? Whatever that is. It's like it's focused inward. Like a nuclear explosion is first an implosion. So you have all this energy. It's like nuclear power. The soul is nuclear power, and the Xing is the energy that's encasing this nuclear power. If you do exercises, you can turn that so that it comes out. So that power, which is faced inward, condensing and keeping the soul safe from, physical reality. When you can coax that energy to turn outward, then you have a magician. Then you have a sorcerer. Then you have a wizard. And whether or not you have trauma that is trapped in that will determine whether or not you are a Sith Lord or a Jedi. People say, what if I want to be a Sith Lord? Well, that means that you want to be angry. And you want to limit yourself with pain and lack of forgiveness. The power is actually greater. The Jedis have more power than the Siths. But the Siths get more physical and ego justification for it. And so their energy is limited. And it drains them of their energy. So when somebody says, what if I want to be a Sith Lord? That tells me that you're in pain. Do you want to be in pain? I don't want to be in pain. So the exercises that I teach here are exercises that, first and foremost, the 90-day challenge level 1 is going to start the process of giving you access to that heart-mind energy, and it's going to release the traumas that are there. So that's why people are saying, I'm doing this, it feels really great, but I'm on week 20 or 30 and I'm having a lot of painful feelings come up. Like, good, that means it's doing its job. You're puking out the bad fish. You're getting rid of it. So just keep doing that. Feel all of the feelings. Write it down if you need to. Talk to somebody if you need to. But then keep your awareness so that you keep taking the actions towards your soul desire. And then in level 2 and level 3, we start moving to a whole other area where we start tapping into the 5 elements. We start tapping into the organs of the body, which are the emotions. And remember, these are powerful entities in and of themselves. When you have all of the 5 elements and you have all of the 3 selves working together, you have the heart mind, and you turn that outward if you choose to go that path, which I'm not saying everybody has to. You can go the normal path, as I've said before. There's a path which is the right-hand path, which is Jing to Qi to Shen, which is the right-hand path, and it's slower, but it's safer. And then you have the left-hand path, which has nothing to do with evil or wrong or bad. It's just you're either dealing with strength or you're dealing with power. So if you go the path of power, then you go from Qi to Shi, which is the heart mind, to Yi, which is intention. That's the left-hand path. That's the feminine, and that is faster. Faster and slower doesn't mean what you think. It doesn't mean that if you go the slow route that you're going to evolve more slowly. Going the fast route doesn't mean you're going to achieve enlightenment faster. It means that you gain access to the power faster. There are people out there who use left-hand technologies very similar to what I'm teaching, but they appeal to your ego because they say you can achieve enlightenment more quickly, and they give you promises of bliss, but lots of times they run into real problems, and I've seen it. So I can tell you firsthand, there's problems if you go down the feminine path without having either a good teacher and or the ability to stay self-aware. My goal with this work up here is to teach you as powerfully as I can, as quickly as I can, as efficiently as I can, and as safely as possible. I wouldn't teach. There are things that I practice that I wouldn't teach online or on video because I can't be there to monitor you and to correct any imbalances or things like posture and things like that. So if I can't physically be there to monitor, then there are things that I can't teach. But I can reverse engineer it so that I can give it to you without having to jump through all the hoops, and to get to the power as quickly as possible in as safe a way as possible. So that's what I'm doing here. All right, so let's go ahead and listen. The whole point of this was I wanted to share with you. This is Greg Braden. Now, I don't know much about this guy. I've seen a couple of his videos. He got my respect because he was talking about I didn't watch all of it, but he was talking about the COVID-19 virus from a scientific perspective. So that got my respect. He wasn't talking crazy nonsense. And then I came across this video, and basically he said from a scientific perspective, what I've just been telling you is absolutely true. So here's where spirituality and science comes together. So let's take a listen from him, and then I will stop away and give my thoughts and share with you how it lines up with what I'm teaching. So let's take a listen here. Give me just 1 second.
Well, the discovery itself is that scientists now recognize we have within our hearts about 40,000 specialized cells concentrated in a very precise way in our hearts. The specialized cells, they are called sensory neurites. Sensory neurites, that's a very technical term. It means they're essentially brain-like cells, but they're not in our brain. They're in our heart. And they are in our heart, concentrated in such a way that scientists now call these cells in our heart the little brain in the heart. One of the things that is so amazing to me is the name of the man who found the cells. His last name is Amour. Amour, this is love in French. So when I think about karmic destiny and maybe what this man's karma was at the age of 5 years old, if someone asked him what he was going to do for a living, he would say, I'm going to make a discovery of a heart. It's in my name. But this kind of discovery is so powerful. And what it is that he found, these 40,000 cells in the human heart, because this isn't a metaphor, this is literal. These cells in our heart, they learn independently of the cells in our brain, of the neural.
All right, so that's important. They learn independently from the cells of our brain. So bear in mind, there's a negative. There's always a positive and a negative to everything. The positive is that this is a place where you can retain memory, emotional memory, memories of love, memories of kindness, memories of connection. But it also means that you can withhold memories of trauma. And so, again, as I said, if you don't process your thoughts and your feelings, then they become shoved into your unconscious. Why do you think there are people that have heart disease and things like that? There's more than just physical things going on. You know, I've been around long enough to see that there's been so many changes in what doctors say cause things. You know, at one point in time, the thing you wanted to do was, eat a lot of eggs. And then it was like, no, don't ever eat eggs. And now it's like everybody should eat eggs. You know, and before it was like what you should do is not have any fat in your diet. And now people say, no, you should not have any carbs now. You should have nothing but fat and protein. I mean, it's just constantly changing. And the same thing with the heart. And people are trying to find out, oh, it's cholesterol this and it's this and that. And then you find that, when you try and nail it down, there's something that seems to be missing. This is part of it. If you've been damaged, you've been hurt. And if you have been conditioned as a child, because children are conditioned. If your parents have conditioned you to feel unloved, to feel unseen, every single person on the Capitol, every single one of them, are people who feel unseen. The problem is not political, the problem is emotional and spiritual. They are taking out their emotional traumatic experience of feeling unseen and unheard, and they're projecting it onto political things which don't exist. We do that in our lives. The poverty that you experience in your life, the pain you experience, the loneliness, the people who need to believe in alien abductions and all of that, if that becomes the focus of your life, QAnon is the focus of your life, it means that there is damage. There's trauma in your heart center. And that trauma has not been acknowledged. And it gets separated from the cognitive mind. Now, the cognitive mind is trying so hard to figure out why you feel a certain way. And because you're not connected to the memory of it, the heart is not communicating with the cognitive mind and processing the pain and getting you back to your authentic self. When that doesn't happen, then there's a schism between the two, and then the cognitive brain starts looking around for the reason why I feel this way, because otherwise you go crazy. It's called cognitive dissonance. You start taking actions that you consciously know aren't good for you, but you can't stop yourself and you can't figure out what the hell's going on. How can I feel like this? And there must be something. I don't see anything. It must be false beings of light. It must be the deep state. Whenever the mystery of it is beyond, what you can just follow the breadcrumbs to, it means that this is where projection comes from. I talk about everything as a projection. So if we can connect these two centers and process the traumas, then we can release that, which, the traumas create the conditioned self. remember, assumptions are everything, right? I tell you that assumptions are everything. Why do you think, those of you who watch, why do you think that there are people who, no matter what I say to them, they can't let go of something? You know, they still come onto my channel, they keep watching my videos, but they always need to argue with me about something. And, when I point out to them my viewpoint about it, which I'm not saying everybody has to accept my viewpoint, but when I give you my viewpoint of it, instead of them going, oh, I see what you're saying, I don't believe that, I'm going to watch another channel, they need to keep hammering away at me, trying to get me to co-sign what they believe. That's somebody who, there's a part of you that knows what I'm saying is true, and then there's the conditioned part of you that needs to make me buy into your thing and co-sign your issue. The conditioned self can't let go of trauma, of pain, because the conditioned self is actually defined by those limitations. When your parents don't see you, don't accept you, don't love you for who you are, then you have a transactional relationship with them where your worth and your value becomes completely dependent on what you have to do in order to get their love. That creates a conditioned self where you go into the world with that. So you automatically assume everything is out to get you, nothing is listening to you. And so you're going to be attracted to spiritual beliefs and practices which focus on, you have to listen to my feelings. And people say, again, I shared this in another video, but there was a woman that I almost dated, and we were going back and forth, and she really violated my trust on a really deep level. It was very hurtful. And the way she justified it was, she said, my simple truth is, and I went, I get it, to myself. I didn't say, once she said that, I said, okay, yeah, we're done. But what she meant by that was, my narcissistic experience of my feeling is more important than the objective truth. That's when people say my simple truth. Because if you say my simple truth or my reality, that's valuable. But when people use that as a way to justify their destructive behavior or their unconsciousness around their destructive behavior, it means that I never got acknowledged for my emotional feelings. And so when it comes to me forcing my emotional experience onto you versus what is objectively true, I'm going to force my emotional experience on you, and then I'm going to justify it or even create a reality that doesn't exist to justify my feeling. And this is called narcissism. And then you get to say my feelings. And this is why people can say things like, in my opinion, global warming doesn't exist. In my opinion, the earth is flat. Because what they're really saying is, I'm not interested in the objective truth as much as I'm interested in my feelings surrounding it. And if you don't accept my view, then you're rejecting my emotional reality. Therefore, you are rejecting me. I don't exist because you don't see my beliefs and my feelings are exactly the same. Whereas feelings and beliefs aren't always the same thing. So when objective reality does not mirror your internal emotional experience, then you go, I have a conditioned self around this issue. And then you look at what the attachments are. And the attachments will always be associated with wanting to be loved and accepted. And if you are wrapped up in a conditional self lie, then you are going to do things that are destructive, that are to other people irrational, and when people don't co-sign it, you're going to feel like they're denying your entire existence. Okay? So that's what's happening. And that's one of the reasons why I get frustrated with people when they say this and then I respond one way and they keep coming back. That's why I get frustrated. Because what I'm dealing with is I'm dealing with somebody's attachment to their conditioned self, and I'm frustrated because I don't know how to get through to them. And at some point, I just start blocking people just because I just don't want to be distracted by somebody trying to hammer away on me, and force me to co-sign their whatever it is. That's, by the way, that's why I say to people, listen, if you don't like what I'm saying, don't watch my channel. It's not that I'm just being, an asshole and just telling you, if you don't like what I say, go somewhere else. It's not that. It's just a waste of both of our times. Just seriously, why do you watch my channel if, But I know why, because there's a part of them that knows that something I'm saying is telling them the truth. They're struggling. They're struggling within themselves to try and hear what I'm saying. So, let's keep going. Let's see what else he has to say here.
In our brain. They think independently of the cells in our brain. They feel independently of the cells in our brain. So what we're finding now is that we have a form of intelligence focused in the heart that can function completely separately from what we typically know in the brain. And as you'll see in a moment, they can also be married. They can be harmonized with the human brain. The heart and the brain may be harmonized in a very precise way to awaken these functions. Before we get into that, I want to share with you some examples of how real these cells and their function really are. It was very common for medical doctors.
All right, so then he goes into some lengthy stuff, which is interesting, but I don't want to take the time in this to go into that. Anyway, so I think I've made my point here. If you want power, now, the whole point of all of this isn't just to get into a psychological, examination. That to me is a tool for something else. Reason why I sound like I talk like a therapist a lot of the times is because this is a necessary thing. If you don't deal with this, if you don't process your emotional issues, you won't be able to get to this place of power, which is what I want. What I want is I want to live in that state of power. I am a power junkie. Some people are junkies of I'm a power junkie. And so this is the path for me. So in order for me to be in that space of infinite power, I have to be willing to process the traumas and the memories and the identity issues that I have trapped in my Xing, my heart mind. And, this is again why in my teachings so often people will talk about the mind and they'll talk about intention, and I'll say that's nonsense. And maybe you don't understand what I'm saying, but what I'm saying by that is that intellectual knowledge has nothing to do with the actual mind. The mind is the emotions, the moon. The mind means moon. The word moon and human and mind all come from the same root. So human beings were originally called Man, which means both male and female. Man comes from the same root as the word for moon. And moon also is that thing that is floating around up in the sky at night, that silver thing that floats around in the sky. That's the mind. The mind reflects the sun, the soul. So you get that as well, because what is it that surrounds the soul? It's the heart mind. It's the emotions. The heart mind emotions surrounds and reflects the sun, the soul. Got that? That makes sense? So this is what I want. I want power. Now, I'm finding that you can manipulate the meridians that are associated with the Xing. And that in TCM is called the Pericardium Meridian. Pericardium isn't the same as in Western medicine where there's like an actual physical, thing surrounding the heart. That's called the pericardium, but it means the same thing. It means surrounding, pericardium, heart, surrounding the heart. There are ways to manipulate and stimulate that so that you're training the pericardium meridian, instead of to hold in that nuclear power and protect it, you then can turn it and empower it to shine its power outwards, which then opens itself for the nuclear power of the soul to come through. But that is potentially dangerous because the pericardium keeps you and everybody else safe. This is why, again, I don't do well with people that I experience as being unconscious. I don't do well with people that I experience as being passive aggressive, or people who are, really codependent and they, kiss my ass. I mean, it's not, I have to kind of hold myself back in public because, the holding things in and muting your emotions and thoughts is necessary to function in society. Society wouldn't function if we were constantly having all of our thoughts and feelings at 100%. We wouldn't be able to, walk through the mall or go to the store. So you have to. I don't do well with that. I don't do well with small talk. I don't like it when I feel like people are kissing my ass, or if they're, intellectualizing things. That's why I get so annoyed with it, because I want to get to the heart of it. I want to experience you. That's why I never attack anybody who comes to me with an honest feeling. Even if that honest feeling is, I don't like what you're saying, it scares me, it frightens me, it angers me, I'll never attack you for that. When you act on that in a passive or in an aggressive way, or you intellectualize it, then I'm going to come after you. So I forgot what I was saying. In any case, I think you know where I'm going. I don't see any questions here, so I'm sort of talking to see if the questions will show up. I don't see the questions here. So I'm happy to take questions if you have any. But what's going to be happening now, I've done level 2 now. So in level 1, you do the exercises just to stimulate the connection to the heart. The whole point of that is so that you can become conscious of what your soul wants to accomplish in this life. Your physical body is merely the avatar for your soul. And so when you are operating from your authentic self, you will be going down the path of accomplishing your soul desire. And that's a whole other subject. But we have this conditioned self, which is something that we've created in order to survive. And that is, in order to survive, we do what people want, what people expect. You end up taking your truth and putting it aside in order to get other people's love and approval. And it's a very real thing, and it's very intense, and it can feel like it's life and death. And, again, why is Donald Trump so bent out of shape after losing the election? Because he can't tolerate the thought of not being loved. That's his conditioned self. It's so intense for him that he is doing all of the things that you see him doing. That's his conditioned self. He doesn't know that he has value in and of himself. If he doesn't win the election, in his mind, he has no worth, he has no value. That tells me a lot about him and his mother. That's a whole lot. We're not going to talk about that. But what about you? What is it like for you? For me, when I was in college, I was studying theater, and I accomplished all these things, and I was the first undergrad to be the lead in main stage production and blah, blah, blah. And my parents came to see me act, and the dean of the department comes walking down the hall and says, "You're Michael Denny's parents. You should be so..." I'm here. I'm in the dressing room, and I can hear this going on. And they're saying, "He is the most talented person, and you should be so proud of him. And he is so..." And he's going on and on and on about how amazing I am. And I think, finally, my parents are going to see that this is valuable, and they're going to know how much value I have. And when it was all over, my dad said, "Well," standing ovation, all that stuff afterwards. My dad said, "Well, you're not there yet." And my mom says, So why do you do it? Is it for the applause? Do you need the attention? And so that created that was my conditioned self. I was conditioned, if I want my parents' love and approval, I can't, I couldn't go out and make a big show of myself. I couldn't get a lot of attention. I couldn't get any real success because it would threaten them. Now you have your conditioned self. Your parents, your society, your life, your past lives have created a conditioned self which can be stored in your heart center. And if you don't acknowledge them, then you end up living in this narcissistic false reality. And it's very insidious. This is why religions are constantly changing. Because what will happen is somebody will have an awareness about life or the universe, and it'll come out in a specific religious philosophy. And it'll start out really wonderful and good. And then people's conditioned self comes in and the intellect overrides it, and then it manipulates it and turns it into something else. And that's why there's different sects of the same religion and why those different sects fight with each other. This is all just getting lost in the conditioned self. Right? So that's what this is all about here. All right, so I don't see any questions. I guess we're done. So if you don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and stop babbling because I'm starting to repeat myself. All right, that's it. All right, guys, thank you so much for showing up. And I will see you all. Wait, here comes a question. Question, how to open center without being dangerous? Well, Katrin Lopez, you're doing it. You're part of the 90-day challenge, right? That's the whole point of that. To go further on that, the way to open the heart center without being dangerous is to learn how to have all of your narcissistic experience of your emotions without being forced to take action on them or to suppress them. And that is being in a state of enlightenment. So let me be clear. You can be in a state of complete enlightenment and be miserable emotionally. You can be in pain, you can be frightened, you can be full of doubt, loneliness, emptiness, and it can be really horrific feeling. But that can turn into a state of acting from your conditioned self, or it can be a state of enlightenment if you are able to tolerate all of your feelings, to love yourself in them, and only take action based on what is constructive to others. So to answer your question, the way to open your heart without being dangerous is to create enough consciousness to know the difference between I'm having this feeling, but here's the objective reality, and I'm going to act according to the objective reality, even though my feelings are telling me this. This is consciousness. This is enlightenment. This is awareness. So that's what all this is about, is to give you the strength to do that, the ability to do that. It's basically a two-step process. The first step process is to give yourself what you may not have gotten somewhere else in your life, which is you exist, you are valuable, and you don't need anything outside of you to validate your existence. You don't need anybody else's approval. You don't need anybody else's love. You don't need to fight against anybody's negative feelings. Somebody whose heart is truly open and is fully connected to themselves, it doesn't matter what you say to them. You could call them horrible names and they might say, wow, that's really hurtful to me. I can't believe that's really hurtful. And that's as far as it goes. They don't have to then lash back. They don't have to change themselves to get your love. They're fully connected to themselves. And so anyway, hopefully I answered that question. Let's see, another question, Jacko. Why is opening the heart center so dangerous? What happens? All right, so I thought I explained that. Let me try again. The danger is that, I use the symbols of the Jedi versus the Sith Lords. So, again, movies And mythology, if they're good and they last the test of time, it means it's a transmission from the gods. They're trying to tell you something. So as cheesy as Star Wars is, there's a lot of truth in it. And the symbolism will show that. So who are the Sith Lords, right? The Sith Lords, Senator Palpatine or, whoever it is, what do they have surrounding them? Everything is red, and they have these guards that are dressed in all red. That is symbolic of the Shin, the heart-mind. The heart-mind acts as, in the Chinese medicine, it's called the king's bodyguard. So what do you have? The Sith Lord is the king, and he has the bodyguard that's red. It means the emotions. So that already, when you are resentful, like when you're full of resentment, somebody did something to you, or you're jealous, and you have it in for whoever it is that said that or did that, that is the heart mind. That's the heart mind trying to protect you. And it is defending you. It's actually fighting against those that you feel are a threat to your heart. So the danger of opening it without having worked through any of the pain and the trauma is that can then turn outward. Which again, what do the Sith Lords do? They, feel the hate, feel the anger, strike him down, and you'll be part of the dark side. And that's part of their magical process. And that means that if you find ways to open up the Pericardium Meridian and you don't use that energy to process the wounds that are within you, then what ends up happening is you turn your resentments out in a magical and energetic way on the earth. And then that's really what demons are. You want to know what demons are? Demons are that. They are emotions that have been emotions of pain, anger, resentment, sadness, all those dark emotions that have been squeezed out onto the world, and they have their own awareness now. And they feed off of people. So if you don't deal with your traumas, and you are able to stimulate the heart mind to turn outward and push project its energy out, then what ends up happening is that you end up using people, you end up manipulating people. And again, this is the guru. So gurus, their heart centers are already powerful and stimulated. So if somebody is meant to be a guru, if they have narcissism, pain, unresolved trauma, they can be very dangerous. This is why the teachers that have these huge followings and need to have people worship them, you find that they've got bad business dealings, they have abused or betrayed people, and you'll find a lot of sexual abuse. There's all of them. All of the big ones that I know of, all of the huge ones that say that they're gods, which is narcissism, they say that they're gods, that they're enlightened, and I'm an avatar of so-and-so, and they have all of these sycophants following them, and you find out they have all kinds of financial issues, and there's no shortage of people who've been sexually abused. That's the heart center turned outward without having processed your pain and your trauma. That's somebody who is operating from their conditioned self. So hopefully I answered that question for you. Question, why? Okay, what happens? Okay, so hopefully I explained that. Okay, did I explain all that? Catherine Lopez questions, what do you think of Sadhguru? Well, I tend not to encourage people to ask me about other teachers for a couple of reasons. It's disrespectful to them because you're asking somebody else to give their opinion and they might not know. You don't mean any disrespect, but it can be disrespectful to me because you're not asking me about what I teach, you're asking me about somebody else. But in the process, in context here, I'm talking about gurus, etc., etc. So I'm not going to give an opinion on Sadhguru because I don't know enough about him. There are some things that he says that I like, and some things I'm not so thrilled about, and some things that I think he's, wrong. I can't really find anything wrong with the guy. I have some misgivings about some things about his whole entourage and things, but it's not enough that I need to badmouth him. I think if somebody followed him and was, really owning their own path while they followed him, I think a lot of people could learn and benefit from it. He's not my thing. I looked into him and I didn't feel like it did anything for me personally, but that doesn't mean that there isn't value for other people. So I almost never talk about another teacher, but there you go. Any other questions? I don't see anything. Okay, so you know the deal. If you haven't seen all of my stuff, of course, you can go to courses.thunderwizard.com. And you can see all of my books and services, astrology services, DVDs, etc., etc., etc. I'm going to be moving more towards, eventually, I think I'm going to put everything onto the thunderwizard.com site. I haven't decided yet, but I'm definitely going to move some more stuff over there. So if you want to support this channel, the best way to do it is to subscribe at whatever level works for you. And if you want to, you can subscribe for a year. You'll get 2 months off. And for those that are subscribed and you've been around for a while and you haven't gone to the 90-day challenge, I recommend it. People are having a lot of powerful, life-changing experiences on there. So that's going to be my focus. And again, we're going to move towards phase 3. So let's talk about phase 3. I should make a video on phase 3. So in phase 3, I'm going to start teaching you some standing, moving postures that open up the meridians to the heart center. And what ends up happening is that you're going to feel your power increase exponentially. The power of the heart center is it's just amazing. I've had people who have trained their whole lives in Tai Chi and Qigong, and they're masters of all that, and they've done just the celestial Qigong, which you should check out as well. They've done the celestial Qigong, and they get back to me and they say, I've never felt anything this powerful in my life, and I've been doing this work my whole life. And that's because there's a difference between your typical Qigong and the celestial Qigong. Now, I didn't know that when I synthesized the celestial Qigong, because what I was doing is I was reverse engineering the spirit fighting practices, and I didn't realize that I was doing this Qi to Shi to Yi path. I thought I was just creating another type of Qigong. I didn't realize that what I was doing is I was paving the way to open up the heart center and the power that is in there. I forgot what I was saying. In phase 3, I'm going to introduce some moving postures that are going to increase the energy level exponentially. And the first one, which is what we're going to start with, so we're only going to go, one level at a time, but in level 3, level 1 of level 3 is going to be the explosive power of creation. And that one is it's called from 1 to 10,000 hands. So in order to know what that means, you have to understand Daoist symbology. So according to the Daoists, there was, in the creation of the universe, there was first emptiness, then there was the one became the 2, which is yin and yang, the yin and yang became the 3, which are the 3 ones, the 3 became the 5, which are the 5 elements, and then the 5 elements becomes infinity. Now, they don't use the word infinity, they use the word 10,000 things. So they can't think beyond 10,000, I guess, and so 10,000 is infinity. So from 1 to 10,000 hands means from one hand to infinity, which is the act of creation. And what you learn from that, you gain power, like real power, the power of creation, the power of the Big Bang. And in that, you learn that one hand becomes infinite, meaning that one action then can become infinite from there. There's infinite numbers of places you can go from one action. It also means when something happens to you, some life experience happens to you, there are infinite ways to respond to that action. So you learn how to operate from infinity, which means that either you make a decision and then each moment you have infinite choices from there. And again, the power is the physical power. I mean, you feel in your body, your hands especially, the hands, the soles of the feet, but the skin, you feel this power pulsing through you that is absolutely intoxicating. And then from that, you learn that no matter what happens to you, no matter what anybody does or says, you have the ability to choose infinite numbers of pathways. And we talk about infinite numbers of dimensions, that we live in an infinite dimensional universe, that according to physics, that whatever you can imagine is existing right now in another universe. So there's a universe where you are king of the world. There's a universe where you are homeless. There's a universe of anything in between has to be happening right now. So the question is, where is your awareness going to be? Are you going to, which universe are you going to inhabit? Each action that you take creates infinite possibilities because now you've opened up another infinite number of dimensions that you can live in. And so the consciousness of that, this is the responsibility. You have to have the consciousness to be able to make that decision. You also know that something comes to you, there's infinite numbers of reactions which will put you into infinite numbers of dimensions, which will then create its own timeline. So from that, you have the ability to turn time down, slow time down, and decide, like Dr. Strange, where he's sitting there, he's looking at all the different dimensions, and then he picks the one that's going to be perfect, right? If you saw the latest, Avengers movie, that kind of thing. From one action, there are infinite numbers of possibilities. From one experience, you have infinite numbers of responses to that. This is the power of creation. So that's what's coming. All right, do I see any more questions? I don't think I do. All right, that's it for me, guys. So I'll see you around. Stay safe. And let's all, speaking of which, listen, there's the potential for a lot of intense things to be coming down the pike the next few days. So let's all stay in our highest awareness. And this is a time for us to acknowledge and take a look at our projections. What are we projecting onto the world? Are we operating from a victim mentality? Do we operate from the assumption that we are victims? Or do we operate from the assumption that we are infinite and that everything is our projection? I think this kind of consciousness can be very important right now. So I encourage all of you to meditate during these next few days. If you want to help influence a positive, peaceful outcome in the world, I recommend that. Okay, that's it. I'll see you guys when I see you. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon or morning or whatever it is for you.